Hello and welcome to an introduction for our next meeting of Scarecrow Academy. I'm Robert Horton. I'm the programmer historian in residence at the nonprofit Scarecrow Video in Seattle, and also the moderator of Scarecrow Academy, an online film discussion series. Our current semester is devoted to the art in noir, film noir and the director, and our upcoming title under consideration is the 1947 film Out of the Past, directed by Jacques Tourneur. Our meeting takes place via Zoom on Saturday, March 6th at 2 p.m. Pacific Time. You can register for the class by clicking on a link at the Scarecrow Academy webpage, and Scarecrow will email you back with the Zoom link. You can also click to find out how to watch the film before we gather to discuss it, or you can always, of course, rent the film from Scarecrow, as indeed you can rent almost any title from film history at Scarecrow. I will briefly introduce our film and our director here. First, let's note that Out of the Past gives us not only a classic film noir setup, but also one of its signature titles, Out of the Past. So many film noir stories are told in flashback or related by a rueful narrator who's looking back at a series of past mistakes. The movie is based on a novel that had a different title, however, called Build My Gallows High. And although that line finds its way into the screenplay, the new title suits the film very well, I think. The author of the novel is named Daniel Mannering. He's also the screenwriter. He actually takes a pseudonym at this point. He went back and forth in his career. His name is spelled Mainwaring, but I've also always been told that it's pronounced Mannering, so that's what we're going with here. He wrote some detective novels before Build My Gallows High, and he did a lot of screenplays in Hollywood during this period. Notably, he is the screenwriter on the 1956 film Invasion of the Body Snatchers, another top-flight genre film. Our director is Jacques Tourneur, a sensitive visual stylist who really is in a groove here. Tourneur was born in Paris, but he came to America at a fairly young age because he was coming along with his father, a well-known film director of the silent era at that time, Maurice Tourneur. And so the son basically grew up in the business. Jacques Tourneur flourished in a few different genres and first really became known in the early 1940s for the films that he directed at RKO Studios in a low-budget horror movie unit, supervised by the producer Val Lewton. Tourneur's films, including Cat People and I Walked with the Zombie, although they bear rather lurid titles, are among the most beautiful films made in Hollywood in the 1940s. Out of the Past finds him working again at RKO with some of the same crew that worked on those horror movie films, which were very handsomely mounted indeed. Some of the same art directors and set designers, the composer Roy Webb, and probably crucially, the cinematographer Nicholas Musaraka, and all of them are working in top noir form here. We have a great triangle on our hands in the storyline, led by the peerless Robert Mitchum, and a very cool-headed femme fatale in Jane Greer. We'll talk a little bit about her career and why it didn't take off as perhaps it should have. And also Kirk Douglas, who was then just pretty much at the beginning of what turned out to be a very long career for that great Hollywood star. So a couple of things to ponder before we gather for our discussion. One is that while film noir is known for urban landscapes, often photogenically washed with nocturnal rain, Out of the Past sets part of its story in the countryside, or at least in a small town, starting with the very intriguing opening sequence that lets us know we're well away from a Hollywood studio. We'll begin to see film noir stories as we go along in our Scarecrow Academy series that contrast the urban jungle with some kind of pastoral setting, which often creates a sharp rebuke to the corruption of the city, or so it seems at first glance. We'll have to talk about that. Another notable thread in film noir is the passive hero, seemingly tossed around by fate or untrustworthy friends, or, of course, the scheming femme fatale. The image of Robert Mitchum in our popular minds might be of a strapping he-man, but it's interesting how often in these films Mitchum is at the mercy of the fates. There's a wonderful scene in Out of the Past, nighttime scene, very luscious looking on a Mexican beach. Tourneur is playing with all kinds of light and shadow. But he's also framing his central couple in such a way that Jane Greer is completely in the dominant position. And Mitchum is relaxing so much, he's practically sliding out of the frame at that point. There's a great bit of dialogue a little bit later when the two of them are in a casino, and Mitchum points out that Jane Greer is playing the roulette table all wrong. And it's not that he knows how to win, he very specifically says, but that, as he says, there's a way to lose more slowly. That's a great film noir statement about life right there. Out of the Past is the first film in our Scarecrow Academy series here to have a truly convoluted plot line. It's a little hard to follow at times. There are a number of noir titles that follow along that similar convoluted route, but I think we will worry less about that than about Tourneur's gift for shadow play, the myriad hard-bitten one-liners in the screenplay here, and maybe some of the fundamental appeal of noir, which is that all of the examples of good, clean, wholesome life that we see on display in these movies tend to come across as, frankly, less exciting than the dirty business of film noir. We'll look at specific examples of that, and by all means, we're going to talk about what you would like to bring to the conversation about this classic film noir when we keep a date with Destiny on Saturday, March 6th for a discussion of Jacques Tourneur's Out of the Past.